Okay, this should be good. Okay, so welcome to our little information session about the Waste Management District grant. My name is Karen Maynard, and I'm the Solid Waste Education Manager. And I work the funding for our education department comes from the Waste Management District, and this is a program we just started last year to kind of incentivize organizations to kind of, I don't know, get excited about waste reduction and have some of their own programs. It's our second year of doing this. And we aren't really changing anything from last year, but our board did approve to do another round of this grant. So hopefully it'll continue to be an annual thing that we do. And I do have a slide that shares a little bit about our recipients from last year. So if you haven't read that on our website. And to get started, I will go ahead and give you all a little bit of background about the waste district. So it is the Waste Management District is governed by the 109 board. The number 109 comes from the Kentucky legislation, the statute 109. So anyway, it is made up of 7 board of directors. So 3 of the people represent the old county commissioner districts, A, B, and C. And then 1 represents the urban services district, 1 represents home rule cities, and 1 will represent the Organization of Waste Industry Business, which is like the National Waste and Recycling Association, Kentucky chapter, and then 1 resident of the county who doesn't reside in a home rule city or the urban services district. So that's the board, so 7 members. And then we have an advisory committee that helps the board. They're directed by the board to do research or work on specific programs. And it's made up of 15 members that represent industry, environmental groups, home rule cities, metro government, and then citizens. And this chart shows a little bit about what that means. So when the with the merger in 2005, there's Louisville Metro Government, but then there's the Waste District. So it's kind of together through a memorandum of agreement, but also separate. So if you kind of look at there is an executive director. Currently, Pete Flood is the executive director of the Waste Management District, and at this point, that position has actually changed where he doesn't work under Louisville Metro government as well. Previously, he had dual roles, and he retired. And actually, when he came back, he now is a part-time solely over the Waste Management District. But nonetheless, there is still a memorandum of agreement between the Waste Management District and Louisville Metro government. And you can kind of see through these branches what kinds of functions each has. So, for example, solid waste education and outreach falls under that waste district list, which is like why I'm here. Plus, there's lots of different things that the district either funds or is over. And then the Department of Public Works is funded through the general fund, and that includes the solid waste management services. And you can see some of those major functions like solid waste collection in the urban services district, central business district, and so on. I'm not going to list all of those things, but you can kind of see there's a wide variety of operations that happen between the two. So the Waste Management District is who is funding this particular grant, and the mission of the district is to develop and implement strategies, policies, and programs that will meet or exceed goals set in the state of Kentucky's Solid Waste Management 5-year plan, to create an awareness and commitment to waste reduction, reuse, and recycling, to minimize adverse effects of solid waste on public health, safety, and the environment, and to provide an efficient and cost-effective solid waste and recycling collection system for the current and future residents of Louisville, Jefferson County. So, as it mentions in that first bullet, there's a solid waste management 5-year plan that that the district is to that that's kind of our function that we follow. And the current plan is from 2023 to 2027. So it won't be long. We'll be working on, updating the new 5-year plan. But currently, the 5-year solid waste management plan has these major themes. So the importance of understanding this is because the grant funding should go towards something that falls under these themes. It can be loosely related to waste reduction and probably fall under something with this, with the district mission and or a theme from our plan. But that's kind of where you're going to be looking for. If you have an idea, if your organization wants funding, like it needs to, the goals of what you want to do with the grant money needs to fall under something listed here, whether it was the mission that I already went through or one of these. So these are some of those major themes within the current 5-year plan. Outreach programs, including best practice guides, toolkits for responsible waste management, technical assistance programs, marketing programs to reinforce the message of putting waste in its place, improving local end use opportunities, specifically for gypsum, concrete, shingles, or other construction and demolition debris, preparing for an influx of spent electric vehicle batteries. That was just kind of listed because it was an up and coming issue that might be something that the plan needed to address. Creation of drop-off sites to include materials such as household hazardous materials, latex paint, electronics, and hard plastics, illegal dumping education and outreach, and anti-litter education and outreach. So those are some of the themes that are within the 5-year plan. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about the grant timeline. July 31st at midnight, the application will open. And at that point, you can apply, you can save and come back to it. You basically have 1 month to apply. The deadline to apply is August 31st at 4 p.m. And I do want to reiterate that deadline is 4 p.m., not 11:59. We purposely do that. So if you have any issues with submitting, you're not having to try to contact someone really late at night. So it does close within business hours. During, from then till about September 18th, we have a review committee made up of staff and members of the board or advisory committee. And we would be scoring all of the applications during that time period. And then we gave ourselves a little bit of time for interviews and follow-up communication if needed. There might be some, we may, if you're selected or you have a high score, we may need maybe a certificate of, if you have a facility already, we might need to see the permits or any certifications. Or just maybe follow-up questions. So, and if we want to schedule interviews, we might reach out. And then at that point, we would have, by the end of all of that, we would have our selection and applicants will be notified. I do plan to notify all applicants, even if you didn't receive the grant funding, just so you know. And then October 14th, we'll make it kind of a big public announcement. And then you'll receive a grant. If you're a recipient, you would receive something to sign and basically the agreement. And by November 2nd, we would need that accepted and signed. So that is the time frame. The total amount of grant funding that the district will provide is $50,000. So applicants can request all of that, all 50,000, or as little as 5,000, depending on what you might want to do. And then based on the award amount gives the number of disbursements. So if it is 5,000 to 24,999, you would just get it all at once. And then or if it's the higher amount, it would be 2 equal disbursements. If by chance you just need it all at the outset, we would communicate that. But the reporting is the same regardless. By February 15th, there's a report done to kind of share how it's been spent so far. And then the activities, there's an activity report and a budget report. And then by August 16th, that would be the second report of how it's been spent. And the reporting requirements are performance reporting, basically your key activities completed, progress toward any goals, community engagement efforts or outcomes, and any challenges, and then financial reporting. So a summary of the grant expenditures, documentation of how funds were used, or updates on any changes. And the other thing that we like to do is invite recipients to come to our 109 board meetings, or the one that happens in October would end up being on October 28th, and that would be the first time we would know who the recipients are. So they would be invited to introduce themselves to the board as the funder and share a little bit about the project. And then throughout the year, or as progress is made, we'd invite recipients back to give, or toward the end, depending on the project, to give a report and share how the funding has helped their organization. And then the regular meeting time is the fourth Wednesday of the month at 5:30. The evaluation criteria is project narrative and strategy is 40%, community impact, sustainability, and partnerships is 35%, and then the organization's experience, financial information, and evaluation is 25%. And I just edited the website today, and it shows now the application questions. So if you haven't been on there today, you can get back on the website, and there is a drop-down accordion button that opens up all the questions if you want to look a little bit more in detail at that. And once the application opens on July 31st, the link to apply will be also on that page. And then I just wanted to share the 2025 grant recipients. I wanted to give a little bit of context so you can kind of see, but we had Feed Louisville did only requested 5,000, was for their No Waste, No Hunger campaign, and they received the $5,000, and they were actually kind of the impetus for even having a grant program at all, because they approached the board to request funding, and even though the board was really excited about what they were doing and really wanted to provide them some funding, it suddenly seemed a little, you know, like they weren't sure about just providing funding when any organization might come and present, and needing to decide, well, how do we know who to give money to or how much, so they basically didn't want to open up a can of worms. And it ended up, I think, being a really good thing, because now they decided to offer a grant, and Feed Louisville did apply, and I was pleased that their score brought them to the top to be able to receive their money. And we had 6 total applications, and 2 others. The Louisville Tool Library also, they had requested 24,500, and they ended up receiving all of their funding. And then Goldenrod Compost is an organization that had I can't remember their full request. It might have been closer to the $30,000 range, but they were the 3rd highest scoring, and the board chose to give them the rest of the funding to basically goldenrod. There, I think that's part of the application, is to show, like, if you don't receive all the funding you request, are you able to still use some funding? So so they were able to come back and say, yes, we could use this money, and here's how we would do things a little bit different than the full application. But and then they've all come back to our board and presented, and it's been really exciting to see what they've been able to do in our community with a little extra money from the district. So that is the basic presentation that I have. I can always pull up the website if we need to look at that. But if anyone on the call has any specific questions, I can try to help, or at least figure out how to follow up if I can't answer it specifically. But yeah, so I think maybe actually I will go ahead and well, no, it might be beneficial for other people to hear. I was going to stop the recording, but Pam, go ahead if you have a question.
I guess my question is about the importance of measurable results. Um, it just caught my attention when the mayor, since I'm involved with Beyond Plastics Louisville, and we're looking at reducing plastic waste, plastic pollution specifically, when the mayor announced no waste, or no, it was Plastic Free July.
Yes.
He gave a number for the number of tons, the thousands of tons of plastic that go into
The
the
landfill.
waste.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and it seems like a goal might be to reduce that.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm just wondering how the how much the measurements are considered. And on the winners from last year, did they provide specific quantities or metrics on what they had achieved?
Yeah. So, well, they don't necessarily have their final reports in, but for example, the Louisville Tool Library uses a formula that I think other similar organizations throughout the country use, um, that helps does a calculation for waste diversion. So, the more the tools that are borrowed calculate to waste diversion. Now, I'm not, an expert on how they do their calculation, but they were able to explain that to the board, which was pretty neat. And that was part of their project. To use those numbers when answering some of the questions. They were able to extrapolate how that is going to benefit. Um, let's see, Feed Louisville is similar in because they take food that would normally be thrown away, to feed people. So that's part of their measurement. And then Goldenrod, is a composting facility. So they're, of course, able to measure um, weights for
Mhm,
compost.
mhm, mhm,
So now I will say, as far as plastic is concerned, that can get, especially for the whole city, the number that the mayor used is actually from our 10-year solid waste study that is actually getting to be almost 10 years old. So um, it's a waste characterization study that is very expensive to have done, and I'm not quite sure when the next one would be.
mhm,
So that one is a little hard, um, because I know you obviously aren't going to do a whole waste characterization study for the city, to try to get that number down.
mhm, mhm,
But you may be able to use some of that data
mhm,
um, in the hopes that there would be a showing, a measure that we can do later, but that one's kind of tricky. But I would say, as far as looking at the questions, project sustainability is a big part of this. How will the project continue to reduce waste, um, or can just continue the program if more funding or more resources are needed to keep going? So I think that without being able to completely measure that, something reduced plastic or whatever, um, the sustainability of the project, I think, would have weight.
mhm, mhm. I guess on the measurement side, I was just thinking about, not that this is a project that I think we would propose, but in Cincinnati, have you been to the Cincinnati Hub Recycling
I
and
I have not been to it, no.
okay, okay. Um, but basically, I think it kind of combines s- some of the things like the pop-up drop-offs that you have. So it's kind of like a weekly location where a lot of things are dropped off that wouldn't normally go into um, the curbside recycling. But
Yeah.
what I noticed was when you bring things in, they weigh everything you bring in. And then they have sort of an area where they have a lot of things for sale, things that other people have brought in. Um, Lots and lots of plant pots, but like
Mm,
the black
yeah.
plastic things, lots of those. But you can take those things and it's usually priced. Some of them are free, but others are so much per pound. It might be, 10 cents a pound
Yeah.
or um, and they weigh everything when you take
On the
that
way
out.
out.
So
Yeah.
so they get weights on everything coming in and everything going out. So that just
Yeah.
struck me as an interesting,
That's good.
yeah, way to
When,
track
because
it.
we have hosted or helped with a few swaps now, like a clothing
Mhm,
swap or
mhm,
whatever. And we started weighing, you know, I don't, and even the repair fair, we're weighing things as they come
mhm,
in and, or if they get repaired, so we can do a bit of a diversion calculation,
mhm,
like if something hadn't been repaired, it probably would have gone in the trash.
mhm.
So yeah, weights can be a really good measurement tool. Rick, do you have any questions or anything or?
Um, since a recipient I received for composting, because one of the things I started in over here at JCTCS, um, we generate a lot of um, biodegradable waste because, like, I'm grounds, so
Mm,
I was just thinking of trying to apply for a grant, trying to get something going in that
yeah,
capacity.
okay.
So I just was kind of trying to figure out the logistics of getting that up and running.
Yeah.
Because we both have, we have tree limbs, stuff like that, but we also have, more plant matter that just easily breaks down.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
obviously, we would have needs for certain equipment and stuff like
Yeah.
that
For maybe
for community
composting on
outreach.
site.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
we've got areas where we could do it and implement it, but it's just a matter of getting it up and running. Because
Yeah.
like they had a sustainability department here, and I guess I would kind of as like a volunteer sort of thing, just to better be able to help the community. Might be able to tie in some capacity of like y'all come in, you can drop off compostables here, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, the U of L composting program or community composting program, I guess they call it, is a pretty well established. And if you're not familiar, I would suggest reaching out to Brian Barnes, even just
Okay.
for information or see what they have going on, to kind of gauge what's possible. But yeah, this that's really, I mean, that it's funny because we started this grant not really knowing what kinds of projects people might come to us with. So,
Yeah.
so we're kind of really excited about creativity or excited for just something new or, even just repeating something that is great and somewhere else in the community. So there's nothing wrong with any ideas, just as long as it follows something with the district mission or the 5-year plan, waste reduction. um, I recommend, you've got a little time to kind of plan it out, but to fill out that application. And like I said, on the website, I do have the questions listed. So, I mean, it'll open in a week anyway, but if you want to go ahead and be looking at those, you can already be kind of thinking through some of the answers. But yeah, for composting on a college campus or anything like that, yeah, I would definitely reach out to Brian Barnes over at U of L. He's pretty easy to find just by Googling composting
Okay.
U of L. So, do you guys have any other questions? Sometimes I feel like we've only done it the one time, and believe me, last year it was even worse, where I'm like, I'm not even sure how to answer questions yet because we're all doing this for the first time. So at least I've been through this once. And we basically, like I said, we had 6 applications, and we did a scoring, and all of our reviewers scored them all since we only had 6, and we just averaged out the scores and did it that way. Highest scores get it. So that way it took into, all the reviewers had, maybe our scores weren't exactly the same, but it that's how we did it. And yeah, so I don't know how many applications we'll get this year. Um, but we'll have our review committee again, just ready to read through them and scoring through our scoring rubric, which I don't think I have the rubric actually posted, but it goes right along those same, basically through the questions. Just shows scoring the number and how it qualifies. So I can probably get that. I have to just kind of copy and paste things because we can't put PDFs on our website, but I can get that on the website too if that would be helpful to see the rubric.
Yeah, that would
Um,
definitely help.
yeah, and if if you end up with any questions on our website, there is a link to a contact form that goes to our education department. So I see those. And there's also I should mention, and I didn't, sorry. The the application is through a platform, and it's called Una Grants, EUNA. So when you when there is a link to apply, it will go to that platform and you'll create a username and password just like any platform these days. And so you would use that to apply, and it's the same platform for reporting and any communication. So, like if I need something, let's say we did have one of our recipients reported, but they were kind of the funding was a little different than what I expected based on their application. So I didn't approve their financial report. I actually sent it back with some questions. And it turned out they actually needed to get an amendment to their how they were going to use the money and have that approved. So it's kind of a back and forth, but you get like an email notification through Unigrants if we can communicate through email too, but the process, if you submit a report and then I get a notification that you did that, I log in, I look at it, and if I approve it, then you would get a notification that it's been approved. So that's kind of how the process works. But there's also an email listed if you have any tech support, because we aren't really able to help you with more of platform tech issues when it comes to filling it out or whatever, and
Yeah.
wanting to make sure you're doing things correctly, we can help with that. But if you have any issues with the actual platform, it's probably easiest to go straight to them. But I feel like it's fairly intuitive. So, you know, but it is through the platform. And yeah, and then recipients, once everything goes through with the signed, we do DocuSign to have the agreement signed, and then our OMB department sends a check. So you just have to have an address. That was another thing. One of our recipients, I think, was a little nervous to put a certain address, for a big check
Well,
to be sent or whatever. So kind of think
yeah.
about those things as you do it, because it's hard to change that in the middle. So
Okay.
anyway, that's about
Well,
all I have. If you don't have any other questions, I'm happy to answer over email.
okay, thank you
Okay.
very much. It's
Yeah,
a great
usually something will come to
opportunity.
mind later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
think this
so,
is a great idea.
yeah,
All right.
All
it's
right,
Yeah, so
great
thanks.
thank
to,
you for
Nice to
taking
meet
the
you.
time.
Yeah.
Yep, nice meeting you. All
Yeah.
right, bye.
thank you.
Thanks for being here, Pam.
Yep.
Yep. See you later.